Hey guys, Palsteron here, and today let's talk about my day 4 update for the EA Ballista Elementalist. After unlocking everything, and now at this point also doing my first tier 17, I thought it was time to actually get a real bow, so I replaced my Stormcloud and I made something new. And that bow is a lot easier to do than the Widow Hail Quiver setup that I have in my POB. I understand that it's frustrating because of how recombinators got reworked. Now you would actually have to craft it. You would have to do stuff like Hunter Exalted Slam, and then you have like a 1 in 4.5. It is an absolute nightmare, and I understand that, so I made a middling solution. And that middling solution is basically just like you used to make these bows back in the day. It's actually surprisingly good and still holds up. The one upside of Widow Hail is you can get a life roll on your quiver and then times 3.5s, right? So you actually get like 400 to 500 flat life. I was thinking, oh, mercs are going to be super hard. And I was thinking, oh, I don't know if the Elementalist survivability holds up. So I thought, let's go for Widow Hail, but honestly, I feel very safe at this point. I've now leveled all the way to 97. I'm super happy with how Elementalist and Golems turned out, so I just don't see a reason not to do it, so I did it. Now, the first thing to note is that there are 2 different versions in Sushi's crafting guide. This is the macro guide. I'll link it down below in the description. Do use this. It's really great. You can just click next and it tells you exactly what to do. Even for people who've never crafted before, I think this is a great tool. This bow got so much easier to make by the fact that you don't have elemental equilibrium anymore, which means you can have fire damage on your bow as well. So that opens up another role that you can stumble into. But let's talk about the prefixes on your bow. So this is the easy bow. And this one will have +3 to socket gem levels, and then also a random flat damage roll if you can, right? But it's mostly just about the attack speed and the +3 to levels. What you need to understand is +2 levels is also just flat damage, just usually more, but not always, especially if you're not using Empower to make use of the +1. So what that means is a bow like this will be a very good upgrade over Stormcloud, probably around about 40 to 50% more damage. You can also get an easy 6-link with the Porcupine here that gives you a 6-link short bow, which doesn't matter because the +2 gem levels is below that item level, so you can already roll it. However, you cannot roll any high flat damage, so that is technically a very beginner build, but you do get a free 6-link, so that's very nice. For example, what I did here now at this point is I put all my golems into setup with Enhance, which gives me even more golem buff effect, and then I have minion life on top, which helps a little bit with survivability. But all these crafts boil down to is you want a combination of these 5 modifiers. You want 3 of those. So for example, my bow right here has a combination of lightning damage, fire damage, and +2. Now, big to know is lightning damage is actually the best damage type because it has a wide spread of damage. What this means is if you think about Ignite, you can only have 1 on your enemy at a time. So if your Ballista is reapplying over and over and over again, that spread makes you have more chance to get lucky. And then cold damage and fire damage are very, very solid. Obviously, do note that the tier of the modifier really matters. So the fire damage here is only tier 5. My bow could be so much better. And the lightning damage is actually from an essence. If you follow the instructions of the endgame bow, then you'll already know that. But to be able to follow the guide, I need to explain one thing to you if you're new to crafting, and that is the way you craft these +3 bows and how certain tags work. If you look at these tags right here, you can see attack, gem, attack, attack, life. And it just so happens that there are certain suffix crafted modifiers that completely change the outcome of what you're about to do. So for example, there's cannot roll attack and cannot roll caster. Cannot roll attack is the one we're going to be using here. So in this scenario, all I did was I spammed Wrath Essences until I got +2 level socketed bow gems. You want to have a 3rd suffix open. If you don't have that, you have to null or you have to try again, right? That's all in the guide. But here's the important part. If I craft on cannot roll attack, which costs 1 divine, that is a suffix. So this is what happens. Boom. And now, if you use an Exalted Orb, this means there is nothing left in your prefix other than +1 to level. All the other mods are attack. So since they can't be rolled, what happens every single time is you get +1. You can see there is no attack tag here. That is the whole shabam about why this bow works and why it's not like hundreds of divines and more like in the 5 to 15 divine realm. If you understand this, I really do feel like you also understand the craft itself. And then do note that if you have a fractured suffix already, you're never going to get damage over time multiplier naturally. You're just never, ever, ever going to hit it. It is so goddamn rare. I only have a tier 2 because that's all I could afford. You can also play around with the bases. You obviously want technically a thicket bow, it is the best base. But if you go a little bit slower, like a 1.45 instead of 1.5, that is also okay. Now the quiver is a little bit more complicated. I tried Hunter Exalted slamming here into the second damage over time multiplier, but I didn't hit it. You have to remember though that you don't necessarily need it. You're losing like 20, 22 fire damage over time multiplier. You're not Widow Hill anymore, so that's not as big of a deal as it used to be. My quiver is absolutely trash. I have low life. The rest is nothing, right? Lightning damage to attacks. It is what it is. It's not a very good quiver. In general, you should be looking for the one I had in my POB. Here it is. This is the GG quiver. Since we're not Widow Hill, you don't have to be very precise with this. You can, for example, go for 30% global accuracy implicit if you really want to. You need to fix that if it makes it possible so you can drop this wheel right here, for example. It might even be worth it. Or you can get flat accuracy in the suffix, right? Instead of one of the damage over time multis, and then any sort of flat damage in the prefix. Once again, flat damage, lightning is king. As much life as you possibly can. And yeah, that's about it. Without the Widow Hail, the quiver is just a side piece. You don't need to invest like 10 divines into it. With that out of the way, what else changed? I actually did get a Rain of Splinters, which I think I put here. I got a 33%er. I think I bought this one for 4 divines or so. Very strong. I shuffled a few nodes around, just a few attributes. Other than that, I don't think anything really changed. Oh, one thing. I now have Flame Wall in my 4-link with Flammability, Arcanist Brand, and Flame Surge. I'll tell you straight up, it's hard to tell how often it actually matters. It's good damage in PoB, but then again, does it actually perfectly fire through the Flame Wall if the Flame Wall hugs the boss because it gets spawned right on top? I'm not 100% sure, but it feels like it. But then again, how are you going to test without a training dummy? So you can do that as whatever you want. I put the Arcane Surge on Flame Dash because the attack speed is very nice while clearing, so I'd rather have it whenever I'm Flame Dashing. Other than that, I don't think anything changed. I will also update the macro guide to reflect these changes because I still have the additional arrows in there currently, and I still have the Widow Hill setup. And the Widow Hill setup, like I said, is still good, but I think this one will give a way smoother transition into, I don't know, 5 to 10 divines. Other than that, EA Ballista has done everything I wanted it to do. I think this was the cheapest feared kill I've ever had in terms of how much gear investment I needed. And I'm currently just farming up for a second build, so we'll see how that goes. At this point, I've basically concluded my setup. I don't think I really need to invest into anything anymore. I feel very cozy. I really forgot how good this build is at Expedition. And one thing I can leave you with here is if you are somebody who wants to play this build into Oblivion, this build is kind of made for Lake Start, kind of like surgically made for that. But that doesn't mean that you can't be a one build guy, right? Like if you really want to just stick with it, I totally understand. Usually what I would do is go to PoE Ninja and look up Explosive Arrow, right? Okay, so if you sort by EHP or DPS or even level, you're going to see people who are going to perfect this, right? They're going to put like 1,000 divines into this over the next week or so. So following some of these people can be quite good. Obviously, you don't know how good they are at making these builds, at crafting those builds, but you can learn quite a bit. And yeah, that about concludes it. New build is going to be coming, I don't know, in a few days. In between, I'm also going to release a strat video about how I made my money for the new build. I already do go over it in my last video, last update video, I think day 3, right? But I will do that in a little bit more detail. But with that being said, hope you guys enjoyed this build in general. If you take it further, happy to see it. I'm always scrolling up here, Ninja. But yeah, since I still don't have a slogan, see you next time.